ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. أما بعد. The topic of today is how we can continue with the blessings of Ramadan even after Ramadan. Alhamdulillah, by the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this month started and now it's actually approaching very quickly, it's approaching its end. And in these last 10 nights, mashallah, everybody increases in their ibadah, everybody increases in their sadaqah, and we want to see how we can continue with the barakat and the blessings of Ramadan even after the month of Ramadan. The fact of the matter is that Ramadan is a way to prepare ourselves for the rest of the year. Most people don't look at it like that. Most people, what we do is we exert ourselves in the month of Ramadan, and then once the month of Ramadan is over, we continue back to our old ways. That's not the maqsad, that's not the purpose of the month of Ramadan. Rather, we want that the blessings of Ramadan continue after. And the way they continue after is if we bring in our lives those habits that we developed in the month of Ramadan. Granted that what we do in the month of Ramadan, the amount that we exert ourselves in the month of Ramadan is much more than we would do normally, right? It's just like, for example, people start on these training regimens, right? Health regimens or weight loss regimens. And so they'll go through a program. The program could be a month, 2 months, or 6 months. So let's say a person goes through a 6-month, extreme weight loss or health regimen. Once the 6 months are over, it doesn't mean that a person now stops and they go back to their old way. The idea is that the 6-month period or whatever time duration that weight loss program or fitness program lasted for, the idea is that once the program is done, we continue to inculcate those habits after the program as well. Otherwise, the 6-month time that we use goes to waste, right? So if a person goes on a 6-month fitness program, and after the program is over, they go back to their old ways, what happened? The 6-month time, whatever weight they lose, whatever muscle that they developed, all of that goes to waste. All of that goes to waste. So likewise, we don't want the barakat of Ramadan to go over. We don't want it to finish. We want those barakat to continue. And the way we allow it to continue is if we continue the same habits that we developed in Ramadan. Now, in a weight loss or a fitness program, during that time, you're going to exert yourself a lot more. But once that time is over, you may not exert yourself in the same manner, but at the very least, you're going to inculcate some habits that you develop. So, after Ramadan, yes, we're not going to be fasting every single day. That's fine. We were standing in prayer for Taraweeh for hours every single day. We're not going to be doing that after Ramadan every single day, and that's fine. But likewise in Ramadan, we're giving a lot in sadaqah. Most people give their zakat in the month of Ramadan. Okay, we're not going to be, zakat is given only once in the year. It's not given every single day. That's fine. But after Ramadan, we want to continue with good deeds. So fine if we're not fasting every single day after Ramadan, but that doesn't mean that we don't fast at all. In fact, when those mustahab days, those sunnah days come for fasting, we should try to fast Mondays and Thursdays, the first 9 days of Dhul Hijjah, so on and so forth. We have the opportunity to give sadaqah whenever we can, we should give sadaqah. Right? لِلْمَالِ حَقٌّ سِوَى الزَّكَاةِ. There is a right on the wealth outside of zakat. And just because a person has given zakat, they shouldn't think that, I'm done. No, every now and then, $5, $10 from time to time we should give. right? We may not be standing up in Taraweeh after Ramadan, but that doesn't mean we stop performing extra nafil ibadat. Pray 2 rakat, 4 rakat extra salat nafil, tahajjud. In fact, if you do not have the habit of waking up for tahajjud, then at the very least, before you go to bed, pray 2 rakats or 4 rakats with the intention of tahajjud after Isha prayer. Make dua to Allah. In the month of Ramadan, we spend hours and hours, and if we're not, we should, hours and hours making dua to Allah. After Ramadan, do we stop making dua? No, we should continue on to make dua. The biggest thing that I tell individuals is, look, in the month of Ramadan, we're ready to sacrifice certain things, right? So there's a lot of people who, they stop, for example, watching TV, watching television. And then as soon as Ramadan is over, TV is back on. There's many individuals who stop wasting their time. They said, you know what, I know of people who they say, you know, in the month of Ramadan, we're going to limit our cell phone usage. But now, after Ramadan, what do? We go back? No. We want to continue. And so the thing is, when we have to sit down at some point in time and analyze our schedule. What do I spend my day-to-day activity doing? My day-to-day schedule, what do I do? Okay, I go to work, I go to school, and you know, this time I have allotted for this, and we want to now try to remove those things that bring about, that are unproductive. And when I say unproductive, I mean unproductive is in terms of the hereafter. So as an example, I know a lot of people watch TV, but TV dramas and things like this, these are unproductive, right? In fact, there could be more harm in them than benefit. Now, if you remove this from your schedule, you remove this from your day-to-day activity, well, now you have to fill it up with something else. So now you find something that's productive and you fill your schedule up with that. Okay? In Ramadan, we were going to the masjid. We have to continue going to the masjid after Ramadan, right? You make it a habit for yourself that every day, Maghrib, Isha, or whatever prayer you're able to, Fajr, often for Dhuhr, Asr, people are at work, people are at school. Okay, Maghrib, Isha, Fajr, I'm going to try to pray in the masjid. Okay? I need to find an activity. I need to find an activity for myself and my kids outside of Ramadan. What am I going to do? I often encourage people, you know, why don't we memorize the Quran? Why don't we start memorizing the Quran? Right? We have this, you know, mentality among ourselves that memorizing Quran is for kids. You know, so when our kids are young, we send them to the madrasa and they memorize Quran. Once we are at a particular age, that's it. We don't memorize Quran. Quran memorization is for kids. No, who said that? Memorizing Quran is for everyone. Right? Instead of, you know, so like, for example, we took out an hour of watching television. Now what do? Let's put an hour where the whole family sits together and memorizes Quran. Now how do we memorize Quran? Okay, why don't we start off with surahs that are commonly recited? So you say what? Okay, you know what? Let's all of us together as a family sit together and memorize Surah Al-Kahf. Surah Al-Kahf we should be reciting on every Friday. In fact, Surah Al-Kahf, it comes about it that Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that a person who recites Surah Al-Kahf, they will be protected from the fitna of Dajjal. Right? And we're seeing so many fitan. We're seeing so many fitan today, so many tests, so many trials. All the prophecies that the Prophet ﷺ made, we're seeing them being manifested and actualized today. So let's do this. Let's memorize Surah Al-Kahf as a family. So every day you memorize 3-4 ayat. You memorize it, okay, you recite it to your children. Your children recite it to you. Especially, you know, when children see parents doing something, especially when they're young, it really motivates them and encourages them to do the same thing. You know, if we don't use the time when they're young, and we don't use that opportunity, and we want them to do certain things, but we're not doing it ourselves, those types of habits won't last very much. In child development, this is a discussion that comes about. It's a that how do kids learn behavior, right? And so one of the most profound and one of the most lasting ways that children learn behavior is based on what they see. It's what we call modeling, right? Is when adults model a certain behavior in front of them, they look at that and then they do the same thing. So there was a test that happens for anybody who took psychology. There's a test, it's called it's like a Bobo doll. So there's this blown up doll, and what the researchers did in that was a grown up, an adult, they took like hammer and they took whatever and they started to punch it and they started to push it around, and kids were watching this. Then the researcher, they left the room. They left the room and they left the child alone with this blown up doll to see what would the child do. And exactly as the grown-up did, as the adult did, the child did the same thing. So if the grown-up took a hammer and it hit the doll, the child also took the hammer and hit the doll. If the grown-up punched the doll, the child also punched the doll. If the grown-up kicked the doll, the child also, it mimicked every single thing that the adult did. And this is another thing that, one of the things that I remember in the child development class, the teacher said, she was saying that, when it comes to, feeding children, oftentimes parents find that to be a very difficult task. And so what parents do is they feed the child and then they eat. Or they eat and then they feed the child. And the teacher was saying that no, the professor was saying that no, actually have the child sit with you and eat with you. And so as you're eating, for example, children don't like to eat vegetables. So as you put vegetables on their plate, you also eat vegetables too. And as you're eating the vegetables, describe to them how tasty it is to you. Oh, I'm eating a broccoli. Oh, this is very tasty. And so when they look at that, they'll also try to want to do the same thing. And maybe it is true at that time the vegetable may not taste very good to them. But just because they're observing that all the grown-ups around me, mom, dad, older siblings or grandparents, well, they're eating it and they're enjoying it. This little kid, what he or she will do is they'll also want to try to eat it as well. Why? Just because grown-ups are doing it. So same thing, we have to start to create an environment for our kids. And this is true for if you have younger children, right? Where we're doing it. You can't expect them to memorize or to have a passion and love for Quran if they don't see that within you. So this is something that we should seriously think about. After Ramadan, why don't we sit for half an hour? Okay, maybe not an hour, half an hour, where we sit and memorize a couple of verses from the Quran. I said Surah Al-Kahf is a good place to start. It doesn't have to be Surah Al-Kahf. It could be any surah that you enjoy reciting. A lot of people like, Surah Yasin, Surah Al-Mulk, Surah Al-Rehman, Surah Al-Waqi'ah, any surah that you like, or the 30th juz. So every day, half an hour, mom, dad, and children are sitting and they're memorizing a couple of ayat. And then you recite it to one another. So, okay, I memorized like 2-3 ayat, that's okay. Today I memorized 3 verses, no problem. Let me recite it to you, why don't you listen to me? Okay, and then the children recite to you whatever they're able to memorize. You will find that in a couple of weeks, you'll have the whole surah memorized. Now, every day, every Friday, you recite by memory, Surah Al-Kahf. And like that, start working on one surah after the other. But very soon, within a year, you'll find that you'll have a good amount of Quran memorized. Right? But the first step is that we have to start coming up with plans. Right? If we want to remove something from our daily schedule, daily habit, then we have to fill it up with something else as well. Right? If we're going to cut down, our children, for example, they have a habit of playing video games. Or let's say, for those who are listening, if you are young, right, you have a habit of playing video games. Right? Let's say you play a couple hours a day. You want to start to cut that out. So let's say you cut that out, and what would you fill it up with? Okay, let me try to find something productive. Okay, let me go to the masjid today. Okay, mashallah, the imam in the masjid is conducting a program after Asr, after Maghrib. Let me sit back and listen to the program. Right? So what you've done is you've removed something unproductive and you've brought something that is productive now. right? Likewise, think up of more ideas. Think up of more ideas that you could do on a daily basis, on a regular basis. And it is true in the beginning, some of these things, developing a habit is very difficult in the beginning, especially good habits. Developing good habits in the beginning, it's quite difficult. So for example, you have a habit of watching a couple of hours. Our sisters, that are listening, you may have a habit of watching dramas, right? Those Indian Pakistani dramas could be very, very captivating, right? There's a new drama every single day. There's a new episode you want to watch. But you want to cut that out. Why? Because it's not productive. It's not bringing any quality to your life. It's not bringing you some sort of benefit to your life. It's not. And don't fool yourself into thinking that it is. Right? Rather, that time is very precious. You're going to regret wasting that time on Yawmul Qiyamah. On Yawmul Qiyamah, when you'll see that the only currency that can speak on Yawmul Qiyamah are your good deeds. You will regret that only if I had only spent some more time doing ibadah and not wasting my time doing something that was completely unbeneficial. In fact, as I said, it could even be harmful. So what do? Now you cut out those hours. You say, okay, you know what? Let me try to remove a couple of this time that I'm spending watching, whatever, television or dramas. I'm going to remove some time and I'm going to spend that time doing dhikr. 20 minutes of doing dhikr is not a lot of time. 20 minutes in a 24-hour day is not a lot. But make it a schedule. Make it a part of your daily routine. It doesn't matter whether I feel like doing it or I do, I'm going to do it nonetheless. So you take a tasbih with you, and as I said, when you do it as a family, if you're doing it with other people, it makes it easier. If you're doing something as a family, collectively, doing things collectively is much more motivating, it's much more inspiring than doing things alone. And so we want to start to move towards that way. So for example, when I was younger, I remember actually my mother and my aunt used to do this. They used to have a jar of beans, and they used to put out a sheet, and you put the beans on the jar on the sheet, and we would take from it and we would read Durood. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad Allah. And we didn't know what we were doing, we were young. But everybody's doing it, and so we started doing it as well. And then there was one time where I remember my aunt brought tasbih, and we were very young, and she gave, myself and my sister, everybody a tasbih, and we started, and she mentioned the virtues of reading salawat on Friday. I think I remember the first time she gave it to me, I think I read like 1,000 times Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad. It was just, we were so, motivated by seeing that, right? So when you're doing things together, that inspires, that motivates, right? But if we start to lack ourselves, then those good habits are not going to be made. And as I said, in the beginning, it is tough. In the beginning, building good habits is not easy, right? It's just like when you have to wake up for school in the morning, right? Summer is coming up now. Right? In the summertime, what happens? Everybody's schedule gets, unless if you're working, if you're a person who's going to school, in summer when you're off vacation, whole schedule goes upside down. You're sleeping late, you're waking up late, maybe you're not having breakfast, lunch is at a different time, dinner is a different time. But then as soon as school starts, first day of school, that first week is really excruciating because you have to now reset yourself. But what happens? By a couple of weeks go by, a month, 2 months go by, now it's easy. Now it's easy, right? To wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning to go to school. It's easy, right? Going to bed early is easy. Why? Because in the beginning it was difficult, but you stuck to it. Maybe once in a while you become tardy, maybe you become truant, but you stuck to it. You were diligent. You worked consistently. Every day you're waking up. Right? Once in a while, okay, you wake up late. But overall, you're trying your best to wake up on time. What happens? Well, by this time of the year, waking up in the morning becomes second nature. It becomes what they call like, there's a a natural clock within your body, the circadian rhythm, right? Where when you adjust it to a particular time period, then sometimes you don't even put an alarm, you wake up at that time. Right? So likewise, when it comes to these good habits, in the beginning, sometimes they're very difficult to bring about. But if you work on it consistently, over time, it becomes second nature. And so that's how we continue the barakat of Ramadan. The barakat of Ramadan are not supposed to be limited to Ramadan. It's a training regimen so that we continue to experience those same barakat outside. Right? As I gave the example, and I'll finish up with the same example just as a reminder. Right? You start up a fitness program. You do it for a couple of weeks or you do it for a couple of months. The idea is not to completely stop afterwards. The idea is, okay, what can I do to continue promoting myself? What can I do to promote a healthy lifestyle even after this program is done? So think of it like that. Even after Ramadan is done, what can I do to help promote a healthy, spiritually healthy lifestyle even afterwards? And so you have to sometimes, sit with your family, talk about these things, discuss these things. Or if you don't find your family to be, helping you in that, well then yourself. Spend some time yourself thinking about it. Use whatever resources you have, the ulama, the ai the imam of your masjid, your teacher, whoever it may be. Try to come up with some form of beneficial regimen. As I said, on Yawm al-Qiyamah, the only commodity, the only currency that's going to work is good deeds. The good deeds that a person does, that's the only thing that's going to be beneficial. Nothing else is going to be beneficial. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, allow us to benefit from these last couple of days that are left of Ramadan. There's still maybe a week left, but the time is going to go by really fast. And so we want to try to maximize our time during Ramadan, spend as much time doing ibadah, dua, dhikr, reciting Quran, giving sadaqah, and then figure out some form of way where we can continue that even after Ramadan, inshaAllah ta'ala. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.